Human society cannot be rationally understood until it is seen for what it is. A series of farms where human farmers own human livestock. This human farming has been the most profitable and destructive occupation throughout history.
Ideas spread, they can't stop them. An idea whose time has come cannot be stopped by any army or any government.
We're not a bunch of underachievers. We're going to stand up and we're going to be human beings. We're going to get fired up about the real things, the things that matter. Creativity and the dynamic human spirit that refuses to submit.
Our nation is drifting dangerously from freedom to fascism. So I have to ask, is it time?
It's time! It most certainly is time. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for joining us again on another Sunday edition of the Big Plantation Live. Hope all of you are enjoying your weekend. Hope you are not still too hungover from last Saturday night, whatever you were doing.
New Year's Eve.
New Year's Eve, yeah. I'm still hungover from New Year's Eve, unfortunately. But I got Tangy Tangerine for that. It does work, believe it or not. But, Moses, before we get into anything, it's been a crazy week. But before we get into anything, I just wanted to let everyone know, our co-host here, Moses, he's a very multi-talented musician, artist, rapper, and I'm not kidding either, but where can people find your music, Moses? Because you're a lot more than just Corrected Axiom. You've gone through a lot of pseudonyms, and sometimes it's hard to keep up with you. You're like the friggin' guy that was running from the government with all the different identities for forging and stuff like that in the movie Catch Me If You Can. But where can people find your music? Because you got kind of like a rock band that you were in that was pretty successful. That's good and conscious. You're a very, very good rapper. I mean, I'm a rap fan, and I bump you, as they say. So where can people find your music?
Well, first off, I want to thank you, Michael, for bringing up my music. I don't want anybody to believe that statement was in any way coerced by me. It wasn't. I appreciate you and your fandom of my music. But you can find my music at correctedaxiom.com. That's correctedaxiom.com. That's myself and Doc Risk, who have been making music together for about 10 years, give or take. And you can pretty much just Google Moses Flows if you want the NSA to know that you're Googling Moses Flows. And on YouTube, there's a lot
Moses
of stuff.
Flows as well.
What's that?
Or I said you could start page Moses Flows as well, or DuckDuckGo.
DuckDuckGo. I don't even know what either of those things you're talking about are. But I know that you can go to Reverb Nation.
Which, by the way, thanks to the NSA, thanks to the Snowden revelations, traffic to sites such as them has more than doubled or almost tripled in the past year. So...
Plus, liking my music will get you put on a list.
Different alternatives. What did you say?
Liking my music puts you on a list. So, you're taking on that burden by supporting me. So please check it out.
If you're already listening to this show, it's probably already there.
Right. Exactly. But if you go ahead and listen to my music, then they're really putting you in a consolidation of people that they try to keep outside of the accepted Monarch programming music schedule, and you're on a list, so congratulations.
So as always, we've been keeping the news page up to date at facebook.com/thebigplantation, also retweeted at Big Plantation, and it's been a hell of a week, man. Marijuana legalization is absolutely exploding around the country. We have yet another huge uprising over in the Ukraine where we talk about all this stuff. I'm just going to read a couple of random headlines to give you an idea of some of the stuff, just to touch on it. But we've got South Carolina House passes legislation 100-0 to ban drones. And, this is something that's really exciting because it gives a lot of credence to something that our guest later, Adam Kokesh, is going to be talking about. Yes, we will be having Adam Kokesh later. It's going to be a fun conversation. But he's talking about localization within government, taking it from the top down. And obviously when government is more localized, us as anarchists, not you guys, Jamie and Moses, but us as anarchists, of course, we would like zero.
Well, hold on.
We'll take what we can get. We'll take what we can get. You got to be pragmatic. But 100-0... the only reason that could be is because of public pressure. So that's very encouraging. Hopefully that spreads. Half of U.S. prison sex crimes involve staff toward inmates.
Jamie, slap him.
Huh?
I want to take exception to being told I'm not an anarchist. Because by doing that, you're labeling me and you're using force. And I am a libertarian, and I don't think that you have the right to tell me that I'm not an anarchist.
NAP is the way to be, man. So we got that. IRS sets sight on Hollywood conservative group. The article goes on to talk about 1,500 different stars in Hollywood, celebs, who basically have to form their own little secret society just to be not even libertarian, but conservative. If you are a conservative in Hollywood with their liberal, overwhelming amount of liberal bias, and not to mention all kinds of creepy activity that we see out of there. You know, you got Corey. I always forget if it's Corey Haim or Corey Feldman that talked about, you know, how big pedophilia is in there.
Corey Haim is
for a long time. Drew Barrymore was a cokehead by the time she was 11. Not a good place. So just to see people like Gary Sinise in here apparently being targeted by the IRS, which I thought we already put pressure on about targeting conservatives. Apparently it's still out of control. Stock market. Dow drops over 250 points, S&P 500 below key market level. But so that's just some of the headlines. Go to facebook.com/thebigplantation, like and share our stories, follow us at Big Plantation on Twitter, and then also worldtruth.org. Basically, it's a Facebook alternative. If you like the layout, the usability of Facebook, the way it works, but you don't like the being censored, you don't like the the NSA and everybody else knowing everything about you. If you don't like being data mined for anybody to see, go to worldtruth.org because it is a Facebook clone that you can use that is private and for activists. But you know what? If we're going to dig into something, let's start with the important stuff. Justin Bieber. Yes, Justin Bieber. And I'm sorry. I know a lot of people are probably, going, oh, why are you talking about that? And you know what? I agree. It's not news, compared to what's going on in Ukraine. It's not news. But Moses, me and you, we have a different view on this as to why something like this is going on, why something like this is being pushed in your face and everything like that. Why would they cut off a congresswoman at a live MSNBC interview to talk about Justin Bieber? Like, now, Jamie, I know you do not believe, but me and Moses believe, not that we're fans of his music, but we believe that Justin Bieber is, in so many words, being set up. Right, Moses? Is that fair?
I don't agree with you at all.
You don't agree with me at all?
No.
Well, this is a severe contradiction to our earlier conversations.
That's
set
right.
up, and I think when I say set up, what I mean is I believe that he is being publicly sacrificed. I believe his image is being purposely destroyed for a certain reason. How about that? Is that fair to say?
One. Go ahead, Jamie.
I mean, no. I don't think that... the only thing that I can see out of it that he is getting, I don't know, chastised for, I guess, is the whole just marijuana, because it's being thrown out in the media, like how other states are now legalizing it, and there's talks of other states legalizing it, and they're really making an example of them that way to show that marijuana is not a good thing.
Well, there's
now,
that,
hold on
but then,
a minute. Hold on
you
a
say
minute.
that,
Hold
but then
on.
on the same account, it was kind of pushed under the rug that they found cocaine in his house, which is, a lot more demonized, I would think and hope, unless you're Nancy Grace. Weed makes you a genocidal family murderer, cocaine, A-OK, possibly. We don't know. But no, like, seriously, though, I hate to pat myself on the back, but, like, Moses, me and you are into this kind of stuff, and I hate to even use the word Illuminati, but these videos are what kind of propagates this idea about what goes on in the music industry. I don't like the word Illuminati. I don't think it's a bunch of people like Mr. Smithers and from The Simpsons sitting around a table, but I do believe that these Hollywood stars that are thrust on us, who don't really have the most talent in the world, don't really have a huge back catalog of work to be admired, that they are put there for a reason. And I think your modern stars, a lot of them like Bieber, like Miley Cyrus, and things like that fill that role, whatever it might be, to their contracts with these record execs. Again, is that fair to say?
I go a step further, Michael. I'd say that they are conditioned from the get before they ever make it to the public arena. You need look no further than a Britney Spears and see the correlations between her and a Miley Cyrus, which I predicted far before Mike Heiss predicted Bieber. But you know what, Mike? You did predict Bieber. And the one thing that's different about Bieber's situation, and I'd love to get Jamie's take on this, but Bieber is a male, supposedly. But Bieber's fan base is that same exact pool. And I would make the argument that there is a systematic destruction of the family within our society. And you look at the TV, there is no denying that the level of sophistication of control is uber, right? So nobody would debate this, right? You really think that everything that comes through that box isn't handcrafted for a certain agenda? I don't believe anybody can make that argument who's awake and conscious. So that being said, you got to understand how long in advance this type of strategic...
just to interject, I don't mean to cut you off, but like it's not really a matter of, like, look at Operation Mockingbird. The CIA is on record of taking over the media as far back as the 70s, and we all know that the CIA does a lot of dirty things. So why wouldn't they? They've been involved in MK Ultra, which I know you know a lot about, and different kinds of mind control. So really, television, it seems to me, is being used as a social molding. But that's just something that anybody who has any doubts can go and look up. Operation Mockingbird.
You want to get into origins and techniques of mind control. Monarch programming is a method of mind control used by numerous organizations for covert purposes. Now, they talked about MK Ultra being kicked out of the CIA, right, in 1970s. That's on record, ladies and gentlemen. You can research MK Ultra all you like, but I urge anyone to research Monarch programming. All right? And the CIA has been open about the fact that they used hallucinogens during their beta testing of this in the 1960s. How ironic that any real civil unrest was quelled within the 1960s by the appearance of LSD.
Oh yeah, and they were very big into the work of people like I don't want to say the wrong name, like Edward Bernays and stuff like that. People who kind of made the foundation of the whole idea of mind control through the use of propaganda to create a hive mind collective of what is and is not socially acceptable and things like that.
I like to stay on things that are completely 100% provable. So let's not go into conspiracy land. Let's just research MK Ultra and understand that that's the way that the CIA was thinking in the 1960s. Then go to technology and understand the level of cult of personality that's happening in our country right now as people complacent with everything going around them because they're more concerned about living, working, come home and unwind, watch what's Kim Kardashian doing. And our royal family is celebrity in this country. Okay, so it would benefit then those who would want to control this country by carving the identities of those control suspects via a Monarch programming. And now this is brought up on the Bieber subject because of this. Everything that I've researched on the Monarch programming subject led to me prior to Miley Cyrus coming off the rails, so to speak, in the past few years, calling that out before it took place. Now, you were able to say that once Bieber had done a certain thing in the public arena, that basically they were going to destroy him now because there's basically a kill switch on any of the personalities. I argued the fact that what they do is systematic, and they broke the mold with Bieber because maybe Bieber started talking a little outside of the fold of what they wanted Bieber talking on. And then they hit a kill switch. So if that's what you were predicting, Mike, then you were absolutely right, because upon the certain post in question, his character has been completely demonized and he's been turned into a bad boy overnight, literally. Whereas you can watch the transition of Miley Cyrus into the current state that she's in a little bit more systematically. Okay, and it more paralleled Britney Spears.
And again, this is speculation. Lohan. This is speculation on my part. This is my opinion. Personally, I think, all right, like these people, they're basically, handed fame on a platter by these record execs and stuff like that. And they have contracts, and I believe that the contracts go something along the lines of, here's the money you stand to make, here's the lifestyle and the fame and all the good stuff that they want to paint it as, but then here's the role you're going to play. And my personal opinion is that Miley's having the time of her life filling this role. Like I really think that she's having a great time corrupting the innocence of all these little girls. Whereas I think Bieber got into it, and now that he's been in the arena for a little bit, is like, whoa, I don't want any parts of this. And now you mentioned when I said he did a certain thing in the public arena, and I noticed that something was weird a few weeks before New Year's. He was on some radio show, and he basically said that he was going to be retiring. Kid's 19 years old. You know what I mean? He got a 401k, but he said he was going to retire. And
if he did have a 401k, it wouldn't have any money left in it.
Exactly. And so he said he was going to retire, and real quick, everybody was quick to say, "Oh, well, that was a joke. He was just kidding." Blah blah blah. So immediately, I saw, well, that's kind of strange. I mean, he didn't sound like he was joking. And then what really caught my attention was on New Year's Day, he both reiterated through his Twitter account that no, I don't follow Justin Bieber on Twitter. I swear, this all random. I pieced this together through random postings on my timeline on Facebook. I swear, and anyway, what he posted was, one, that he is in fact retiring, and then he went on in the same series of tweets to praise Jesus Christ. Now, I know being a Christian is very unfashionable today. We can just see what happened to the Duck Dynasty guy to see how far people will go to have this conversation of, protecting whether it's hetero or homosexual over sexuality on TV. But then if somebody defends their Christian values, it goes to bigotry instead of, oh, well, he just believes that. So
where did you see that? Where did you see him say that Jesus Christ was his Lord and Savior? Because that wasn't on television in any form.
He personally tweeted it.
But they post all his personal tweets on television. That's not. That
well, why do you think? Again, we already established what kind of culture is in Hollywood. That does not fit the. You can't have a culture of pedophilia and all this, and people who like, oh God, why am I forgetting his name? Who's the guy that starred in Grease and Pulp Fiction?
What? I just want to brush on what you just mentioned because you just referenced pedophilia, and I don't think anybody could deny the fact that the elites
John
are
Travolta,
practicing
he's
in
jerking people off, saying, "Oh, this is just what happens in here when you to get jobs." You can't have both a culture of that and the youth, the emergent culture coming out of Hollywood saying, "Oh, well, I believe in Jesus." The two don't quite mix, So of course they're not going to, publicize that he was tweeting about Jesus.
I was playing devil's advocate, Mike. Continue.
And immediately when I saw that, I kind of half-jokingly said, watch, this kid is going to be allegedly a pediatric crack dealer by the end of the year. Lo and behold, 3 weeks later, he has 11 cop cars show up to his house serving a warrant to search for eggs because he apparently egged the shit out of his neighbor's house to the tune of over $10,000, a felony. And that's a lot of eggs, by the way. That's crazy. And so that's what started. They found coke in his house. Now he's street racing and all this stuff. And it follows a pattern of other people. Look at DMX. He was the biggest thug you could imagine in the public sphere for a while. And then he turned and they did the same thing with him. Next he gets arrested. Media's at the jail to record him being arrested before the judge is there. And nobody can explain how they got inside. Just weird things. Michael Jackson, he openly talked about how they were going to murder him to his family members. He openly said that the people who own Sony Records are very bad people and that he's going to have a majority stake in Sony Records and own it here soon after he was out of the contract with them. Next thing you know, he ends up dead, just like he was telling his family it was going to happen. So there is a pattern there. And I know this might sound ridiculous to a lot of people. Why are we talking about Bieber? But what I'm saying is, you hear this stuff about Bieber, and on the surface level, it's like, oh, well, this kid's an asshole. This kid's a brat. This kid's this is that. And you know what? That might be true. But I think that's what they want you to say. Why else would they take such precedence where they're cutting off a conversation about the NSA on national television on MSNBC to talk about something like this?
Heis, I'd like to make your point again for you, but just in different terminologies here, and again, just delving in with only things that are simply provable, okay? And that would be this. Taken from another angle, it could be looked at as when Miley Cyrus was caught smoking salvia and then marijuana, and it evolved, right? So even just taking from that at face value, there's a singular point that you can look to and see this decline in the public reputation of Justin Bieber. Okay? And without even then applying what you would learn through researching the Monarch programming, through what the CIA believes that they can achieve socially by controlling key figures in social grooming, you can simply just see that there's a parallel. It's just moving very quickly. So it stands to reason at that point that maybe he broke from his program as far as what they would like somebody that high on the public stratosphere.
And that's where, I mean, it's a slight disagreement. That's where me and you disagree. You know what I mean? Like, because that's possible. It's possible that it's that way. I think it's more of a contractual thing. Like, oh my, yeah, I'll be a millionaire. Yeah, I'll be your puppet on air. My family never has to work again. Hell yeah. You know what I mean? But then it gets real. That's my opinion on what I think it is. Like,
what's the difference? What exactly?
In effect, none. But one's a little bit more insidious than the other when you think
one's
about
a little
who
more
would be
detailed.
behind such a thing.
Yeah,
One's
I'm going to make my
more
last
detailed.
closing
When you consider the fact that Britney Spears' manager has been her mentor.
No, the whole thing that I see coming out of this is that this kid is a spoiled brat who went into a contract with a record label, was totally in over his head, couldn't stand public backlash, started acting out in certain ways, and now they're burning him. And I don't disagree that they're burning him and probably burning him for a purpose. But if anything, he didn't wake up. He just accidentally stumbled into this whole mess that he's in now, in my opinion.
And that could be argued to be saying the same thing as well, which is that
exactly
he is only 18, right? He was thrust into millions and millions of dollars. But the fact of the matter is, they want you to perceive him in the way that they will now show. And that's the real issue. And it's undeniable. Whereas people only get their information and make they don't use deductive reasoning at all. They are told. And that's across the board. In pop culture, in news, everything. Everything comes through the talking box. So they're going to tell you now how to feel about Justin Bieber.
All right, and it looks like we got a caller. Of all topics for us to get a caller on, I find this one shocking, so I'm kind of interested. We got Ken on the line. Ken, how's it going?
Welcome to the Big Plantation, Ken.
Do we got Ken?
What's happening?
What's cracking, Ken?
You are
Can you hear me now?
Thanks for calling.
Welcome aboard,
What's
Ken.
happening, guys?
So what's on your mind, Ken?
Well, where's Adam? Let me add him.
Not yet.
He's not on yet. That'll be the 8 o'clock segment.
Ken, let me ask you a question.
I'm off on my time. Go ahead, ask away.
All right. What is your feeling on the subject that we're talking about? And to give you a quick synopsis, we're kind of arguing the same point in three directions, which is that the public arena purposely gives idols and destroys them when they no longer serve a purpose. This is talking about Justin Bieber, which Heiss had brought up. Do you think that what happens in pop culture, I know it's obviously irrelevant when you are awake and talking about much more important things, but as far as the controls that are in place for the great majority, I'd say 90% of Americans are asleep and entranced by this. Do you think that it is a relevant subject then to talk about the system of control that they use, which is the cult of personality through the celebrity in America?
Well, being from Miami, cocaine and drag racing kind of just a usual evening there, so I don't know what all the hype's about.
Absolutely. And we're not advocating cocaine use, or what was the other part about Miami?
Not.
Or drag racing? Yeah, not even independently.
I do endorse drag racing. Come and get me.
Yeah, cocaine and drag racing is pretty much a usual evening, unfortunately, in Miami. I mean, have you ever drove down I-95? I mean,
I won't drive down I-95. They
average.
use mindless space robots to track your timing on your speed.
But
and then you get it in the mail.
But from what I understand, it wasn't a question of him being on cocaine while driving, but drunk. And I've also seen an article talking about how the cops might actually be vastly exaggerating his blood alcohol. Now, on one hand, you could say, oh, well, he's not 21. That's irrelevant because he shouldn't have any in his system. But on the other hand, it kind of goes to say, well, if they're making him out to be blackout drunk with this .034 blood alcohol level and stuff like that, like, why, what agenda does that fit? Why would they do something like this? Why is it a big deal that, without, I mean, I guess you could probably prove drag racing, but without proof, they basically that they're having 11 cars storm his house. Why is his? Do you think that there's anything weird about the fact that this is all big news and it's all coming so fast that one of the biggest pop stars in the country is having their image tarnished like this, whether it's of his own volition or not?
Ken?
Well, when you use the phrase driving, though, I doubt he was under commerce that night. I don't think anyone was paying him, so really is my line is understanding the police state and the fact that our right to travel, and I don't condone anybody drinking and driving, and it is very dangerous.
What about drinking and traveling?
Being in your right, or drinking and traveling. There's no escape from that. I mean, it's definitely don't do it. Not if you value lives and the value of the lives around you.
Yeah, so, we got to get our court language correct here on the Big Plantation.
This message brought to you by FPRN Radio.
I signed all my documents without prejudice.
It's funny that you mentioned that kind of thing, because I have no proof that it helped me. I have no proof that it saved me, but I did in fact sign all of my documents when I was arrested that I was signing them under duress, and lo and behold, my charges get dropped, which is really hard to have a DUI charge, which I was not at all intoxicated. But it's really hard to have a DUI charge, even a bogus one, dropped in PA.
How is it out there in Miami, Ken?
Sorry, say again?
How are your drinking laws while driving down in your location?
Traveling, Moses.
Well, the state of Florida is very strict on that.
What's your blood alcohol level?
I don't have. I don't really know. I don't even drink, so it's just something that of little concern to me.
Well, your blood alcohol is at 0 then. But we're coming up.
When you're pulled over, the reality is, if you're pulled over and you haven't hurt anyone, you're supposed to get a ride home. At least that's what I know that the law will do for other law enforcement or law enforcement family. It's that kind of who you know thing. And they'll get a ride home where, our sons or daughters, mothers, sisters, brothers get a trip to a cage.
Absolutely.
So
and you're bringing up a point.
Is
the guy in Texas who wound up killing 3 innocent people whose family was very wealthy and was able to get off completely with, I think, some sort of like counseling program. And the families were outraged. And a lot of people who read about that were outraged. So it does come down to a point of who you know. But, Ken, you did call in. We've got a break coming up. And I wanted to know exactly what it was you wanted to ask Kokesh, because that's who you were asking for. But, again, we're on the break. He's coming on at 8 o'clock. I'll give you the remainder till break. What is it?
Well, I wanted to ask him why did he hire a lawyer? I mean, I have a tough time with that, to hire someone within the legal society to defend you on a case that they're not going to be able to defend you on, not properly.
Well, we'll definitely get that question out to him when he comes on, so stay tuned for us. But Moses, you want to take us out to break?
Absolutely. And Ken, so make sure you stay tuned at 8 o'clock, because we will, Jamie, make sure you write that down for him to ask.
Got it.
On part of Ken. And get anybody else who wants to enter into our chat currently. Tell them where that's at Heist, so they can throw out any questions or engage within our chat during the Kokesh interview at 8 o'clock.
Yeah, absolutely. If you go to fprnradio.com/listen live, listen-live, the chat room is going to be right there on your right-hand side, and we are checking it out.
Yeah, so we will we'll be watching that. We only have a short time with Adam, but we'll make sure that he gets to hear from people who have questions for him, and that's great. And we appreciate you calling in, Ken. And we're going to take a quick break, and we're going to go out with apparently me playing. And I'm telling you, I'm not promoting my shit like this. It's these guys. It's not me doing it. It's is Moses Flows for Big Plantation. Go to mosesflows.com. No, it doesn't exist. We'll be right back. Big Plantation on SPRN Radio.
All we curse to see the murder, freedom with no signs of remorse. We stand leaderless as sheep and
Hi, I'm Trevor Moore. Due to the recent revelations that in order to fight terrorism, the NSA has been using a secret court order to spy on every single Verizon and AT&T customer, Americans have become outraged and concerned about their rights to privacy. But along with that concern comes a feeling of hopelessness. I mean, what can we do? Vote in new leaders? Well, the problem is that during an election, each candidate pretends to not be an asshole. Then when they get the job, they reveal that they've actually been a complete asshole this entire time. No, elections are of no use. The only way to fight back against our country's excessive wiretapping and data mining is to make it irrelevant. That's why we're launching Operation Everyone Talk Like a Terrorist all the time. If we all openly discuss terrorist plots in each of our phone conversations, then eavesdropping on those phone conversations becomes pointless. It's simple. We just need to work it into our daily vernacular. For example, instead of saying, "I love you," you could describe a terror attack. The larger the scale, the more you love the person.
Hi, Mom. I just got out of school. Can you pick me up?
I'll be there in 15 minutes. I'm gonna use a truck bomb to blow up the Brooklyn Bridge.
I'm mailing anthrax to Pierce to Morgan.
Or nonsense about God's will being great could mean affirmative.
Hey, man, they have a 7:30 show, and do you think you can make it in time?
God is merciful and his love is unchanging. Did you already get me a ticket?
And those are just a few examples. You can make up your own. Have fun with it. But it's time for us to stand up and protect our rights. Because those assholes aren't going to.
Do you have a group or organization founded on the principles of personal liberty, health freedom, or accountable government? We invite you to check out Same Side Entertainment. Get connected with leaders in the liberty movement like Tom Woods, Kevin Gutzman, Jack Hunter, Robert Scott Bell, Michael Scheuer, and many more. Find us on Facebook, Twitter, and our website at www.samesideentertainment.com. Again, that's www.samesideentertainment.com. Same Side Entertainment, connecting you with the education and resources you need.
Hi, I'm Steve.
I'm Irene.
I'm Lisa.
My name is Tom. I'm a graphic designer,
college freshman,
stay-at-home mom with a full-time job,
scholar on social policy, and a barista.
And I'm just like you.
I'm an Obama supporter.
I support President Obama.
But the president needs your help.
Our president can't launch into another war without you. And remember, we promise to support him no matter what.
Together, we can do it.
That's why we here at the Americans for Whatever Barack Obama Wants, Did You Know He's Friends with Jay-Z, have launched a Kickstarter campaign to fund World War III.
And America is dead-ass broke, so our goal is to raise $1.6 trillion on behalf of the U.S. government.
That's where you come in.
Even a small donation would make all the difference.
When I first saw the president speak in 2008, in a YouTube clip posted to my Facebook page, I knew he was going to be right all the time. So I support World War III and IV and any moon war the president may want to start.
I mean, there is no way that he or the cabal of corporate interests, spy agencies, and shadow bankers that tell him what to do would ever mislead us. A $25 donation will get you a piece of rubble from a war-torn Middle Eastern country kissed by Senator Lindsey Graham.
A $100 donation gets you a day pass to leave your local refugee camp.
You'll probably end up in a refugee camp, but it'll have free Wi-Fi.
So please, help us reach our goal of $1.6 trillion so we can make World War III a reality. Why? Because Obama.
Because Obama.
Hi, I'm Steve.
I'm Irene.
I'm Lisa.
At Damari Nolo Outfitters, we view the outdoors as our home, not a harsh wilderness. Our gear is chosen for adventure, not just in our backyard, but in the vast expanse of our amazing planet. Damari Nolo Outfitters carries the essential gear and tools you will need to live the empowering mindset of self-reliance. Our products are chosen especially for their durability and quality, and are carefully tested by our staff and associates. Our promise to you is we never offer any item for sale we don't use ourselves, so we can offer only what we know to be the best. Our online store makes it simple to browse through our high-quality lines of clothing, knives, tools, load carry gear, and accessories. We are committed to offering you the best American-made equipment on the market, a promise you'll see as we continually add new products. For more information about our products and blog posts to help you learn more about self-reliance and equipment, please visit www.domarinolo.com. That's DOMARI-NOLO.com. Damari Nolo, chosen for survival and adventure.
In 1997, a high school shooting was stopped by a vice principal with a gun. In 1998, a middle school shooting was ended by a neighbor with a gun. In 2002, a terrorist attack was stopped by a school guard and a teacher with a gun. After September 11th, pilots began carrying guns to protect their passengers. Let's give our schools and teachers the same option. Sign the petition at defendschools.com.
Thanks for listening to FPRN. Don't forget to check us out on Facebook and Twitter. If you'd like to start your own show with FPRN, advertise with us, or donate to the network or to your favorite shows, check out our website at www.fprnradio.com.
Welcome back to the Big Plantation, everyone. So happy you could join us tonight. And now that we wasted that whole first hour talking about Bieber, I'd like to get into something a little bit more important, if you guys don't mind. And that would be the whole situation in Ukraine. Now, this is one of those things that makes my blood just boil. I love hearing it, and I hate hearing it. But I enjoy seeing police get whipped in the face with chains from time to time, and not the other way around. What do you guys think?
Yes and no. I mean, I personally, to me, it's a bit motivating to see people not be as passive about their, the decline of their culture and the decline of their economy as they are here. But at the same time, it's also a different culture and different economy. They're way worse down the line. And I think the fact of the matter is one, what you're seeing there, as bad as it is, I mean, frankly, it's probably the most hardcore confrontations with police that I've seen since Greece, and I think it exceeds what I saw in Greece. But at the same time, this is small skirmishes compared to how bad it can really, really get. And I don't think that's what they want, because, the people, I mean, and it's not what I want. And as inevitable as it may be, I would rather see a policy of diplomacy, because the fact of the matter is that, yeah, the police are absolutely out of control. Yeah, something needs to be done. Yeah, don't trust them. Don't talk to them. Film them. Know your rights. Do everything you can to empower yourself against them. But the fact of the matter is that they are the pawns. They are the pawns. They are not the people that need to be focused on. It's just unfortunate that they are the gatekeepers. They're like the agents in the Matrix.
Now, I missed the beginning of this, Jamie. I had to grab a beer, and I apologize to listeners for that. But I can only assume, deducing what you were saying there, Heiss, that Jamie brought up what's going on in Ukraine right now?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. All right, check it out.
It warms his heart to see
to
the fighting back, is what he's saying. And you know what? I can sympathize with that, because it is encouraging to see, like, all right, like, for example, there's the one footage that RT put out, and I've seen from other people, where it looked like they're in some kind of municipal building or something, and the cops are lining stairs, going upstairs, and they have like a phalanx, not a freedom phalanx like we do here at FPRN, but a tyranny phalanx, and they are all huddled together with their shields, and you got this mob of angry people, and they're literally throwing stones at them, hitting them with the end of big ass hoses, taking their shields away and using them against them. And then, to my surprise, the cops backed down and dispersed and left some of their own behind to either be kidnapped, citizens arrest, whatever you want to call it. I was surprised that those ones that got taken didn't really have the shit beat out of them like you might expect. At least not on that video. It is encouraging to see that, honestly. But at the same time, we don't want it to go there.
Heiss, Jamie, both of you. What is the reason that the people of Ukraine took to the streets?
This is what I was about to get into. So, I mean, all right, let me start off with last night. The militant wing of the Euromaidan group, I believe that's how you pronounce it, the Euromaidan, it's with an A instead of an N-E, whatever. It took control of a Ukrainian house last night. Now, this is some sort of state-owned building that they do concerts or whatever in, and the demonstrators, all these demonstrations began on November 21st after President Viktor Yanukovych, I believe is his name.
Yakinovich.
Okay. Well, there you go.
I don't know.
Decided to abandon ties with the EU in favor of Russia, which he was promptly rewarded with a $15 billion bailout in funds from Russia and a 33% discount on imported natural gas, which any sovereign nation would be excited about.
Mm-hmm.
And people were outraged by it because they, if you know a little bit of the history about Ukraine, they don't really like Russia. There's been a lot of very bad things that have happened in Ukraine. A lot of starvation.
In Ukraine, car drive you.
Well, it's definitely one of those situations where they would prefer to be in favor with the EU over Russia. They don't want another Soviet Union forming. Is basically what a lot of that is coming out of. A lot
and
of
where do you get that
towards it.
information, Jamie? As far as what drives the people of Ukraine to the streets.
Now that's definitely not the only thing, of course, but it is one of the major concerns. The thing that really this is what I was saying before about how I'm back and forth on the subject, because this is great seeing people resist, but at the same time they're resisting because they weren't given a government and they were given another government instead. And it's not like they're arguing. They're not like fighting for freedom. They're just fighting for the fact that they'd rather be part of the EU than part of a new Soviet Union.
And that's what we are being told over and over again now. And that's our understanding of it. And I just asked you this one question. Why did the people take to the streets for Occupy? And does it matter why they took to the streets? Because all that really matters is how it's written. And everything that's remembered now on the reasons why people took to the streets for Occupy is they didn't really have a reason, and then it winds up being a pointing the finger at Wall Street, and then that's the narrative that's written. How can you trust being told that they're in favor of the EU?
Well, you're definitely right. I mean, there's obviously different things going on in there. Like, all right, for example, there is the main group that is in the highlight right now is this right-wing group called the Euromaidens that, like I said, they took control of a building last night. They were like armed with hatchets and clubs, and they just chased the police out. And this erupted from the 4 days ago on the 22nd of January. There were 3 activists were killed, 2 of them from gunshot wounds. The other was, I believe, beaten to death. And something like since this started in November, about 300 people have been injured so far. Some of them being police, of course. But the prime minister of Ukraine, I'm going to butcher this again. It's Mykola Azarov reported to the BBC that the police were unarmed that day, and despite video, photographic, and eyewitness evidence saying to the contrary, that they were unarmed and that it was paid provocateurs that shot the men from rooftops and not the police. Now, that obviously pissed a lot of people off. They met with opposition leaders on Saturday to try to work something out, and this is actually something I think you guys are going to like. One of the heads of the right sector, his name is Dmytro Yarosh, the leader of the right sector, who's led numerous fights against the police, says no compromises with the gang. That it is a handout, and that it will not solve the major problems, those problems being the system, and that the same czar will be in place, and that the murders will not stop and the oppression will not end if, we're given positions of prime minister and deputy prime minister. Like, it's not going to solve any problems, so we're not looking to compromise. We just want this government out.
So you're saying that there's an uprising in Ukraine, and there's a lot of different sects involved, and it's not really clear who's going to wind up in the aftermath rising up from this, but the only clear narrative within the media is that one thing that they all agree on is they don't agree with their government, but they agree with the EU. It sounds a lot at some level similar to what happened with the situation in Egypt a couple of years ago, in my opinion, which we all know how that wound up.
You mean that CIA operation that was, the Muslim Spring, Arab Spring?
No, I wouldn't call it a CIA opera. I have no evidence of that, except for the Muslim Brotherhood becoming the ones who win a supposed democratic system election after a 30-year reign by somebody that they did not like. Now, what were all the reasons that the people of Egypt took to the streets to overthrow that president? Does it matter? Because what ended, how it resulted, was having the Muslim Brotherhood in power. And you see where I'm going here with this idea here with the Ukraine? Anyway,
I see where you're getting at, and you know, they're definitely trying to portray a different thing that's going on. The only thing that I have to say about Ukraine is that a lot of the opposition leaders they seem to be real people, and they legitimately do seem to be in the spotlight because they have failed thus far to completely shut off communications via Twitter and, you know, other things like that a lot of the information is getting out. But there definitely is a clear leaning towards this right-wing sector in Ukraine.
And what happened in Greece? What's going on in Greece? Do we know?
What's going on with Greece?
Yeah, what's going on in Greece? Do you know?
I mean, it's
not anymore.
Yeah,
it's been a while since there's been a flare up there.
What did happen in Greece?
They stole their bank
woes,
accounts.
Same thing, yeah. Stolen bank accounts.
Okay, economic woes. They had people still protesting in the streets. There was a very high-profile rapper / activist, and I draw no connections here whatsoever, but he was killed. Their current political party that is in power is called the Golden Dawn, who is operating very reminiscent of Godfather movies. And the Golden Dawn has a very historical name, if anybody has read anything into occultism. But that's neither here nor there. But we don't hear anymore much about what happened in Greece and in Europe in general, but we're hearing this one now. And I think you have a constant flow of people knowing that there's something wrong in their collected countries. And, I mean, we have it here, don't we? It's not on television. I think us three can definitely
but not
testify.
to that level. And to me, I think it's indicative of the American economic woes is the way I know me and you had talked about this. To me, this is something that was very foreseeable to anybody who understands the advantage that we have with the dollar being the reserve currency, because that drives prices way up for international goods like oil, like gold, with other countries. So basically, inflation hits them much harder than it hits us. So it's logical to think that other countries are going to have these economic problems with inflation and prices rising, same thing, in their countries before it hits us the way that it's hitting them. So to me, it's all kind of foreseeable.
Though, Mike. It's convenient, and I mean this in all honesty. It's convenient if you want to see how a bigger country, say like America, will deal with this type of economic turmoil, to watch it on a microcosm in Cyprus and almost like a controlled release valve. Let's see how this microcosm deals with it. Mind you that I don't even think the people of Cyprus are under the same level of media control that America is.
Well, Cyprus is going on in London right now. Look at the HSBC Bank. They basically are I almost want to call it capital controls. Like they're putting restrictions on their customers, saying, you know, there's caps on the amount of cash you can take out. You can take out cash, but you got to tell us why you're taking it out and things like that. So this is starting to hit some of the bigger countries.
And why do you need to label what exactly it is that they're going through? You can't just see the relevance in the fact that it's a similar end game in every single country. What is actually leading to it is inconsequential. It seems to be almost systematic at this point. And how ironic that Ukraine, the doorway to Russia, while we look at the global stage being set for World War III almost certainly, is the one that we're being shown right now.
I mean, it's definitely true. And in a strategic point of view, Ukraine always was the place to control as far as European interests because of the threat from Russia.
And part of the sentiment from what I understand, with why they don't want to be a part of Russia is because of the declining relationship between America and Russia. They don't want to be subject to any kind of trade sanctions or disparities that happen between Russia and America and the West.
How
and they
many
feel that it
people
would be
of the
more
Ukraine
beneficial to their
do you
immediate
think know
quality
that
of life,
word you just used?
Or standard of living,
How-
I should say, by staying in the EU and the trade relations that America has with the EU.
How do you think the people of Ukraine relate those words you just spoke? Do you really think that
it's looking like
they're paying
relating
attention on that
cocktails
level
right now?
What's that?
It's looking like they're relating that with Molotov cocktails at the moment, and
Right.
fireworks.
But you think that level of contemplation that you just gave is what's running through the minds of the people that took to the streets over there? And at the end of the day, does it really matter what drives them out there?
I think why is always you can't understand the what to do unless you understand the nuts and bolts of how and why. So I think why always matters.
Yeah, but you're talking from a standpoint that all of what's happening is not to plan.
But yeah, it's part of the sentiment that we already established with why they would want to be in the EU, because you can make the point like, oh well, they're asking for big government. You know, this is not a good thing. This is not something to support. These people rising up against their government because they're asking for more big government. It's basically a soapbox for global governance. You know what I mean? Like, obviously, centralization of government. But on the other hand, it goes to show what the nature of government does to a person. You know what I mean? Because they feel that they're dependent at this point, and that's what government does. So it's
Again,
a
you're
lose-lose.
assuming that the people of Ukraine want to be a part of the EU, and that's not the narrative that's coming out of this. Did the people of Egypt want the Muslim Brotherhood in power?
Apparently not.
No, apparently they became elected in a free vote afterwards, and we were told on our TV that that's what they wanted.
Yeah, but apparently they didn't.
Yeah,
now
apparently
about the military overthrow of all that. But another thing that did not help is, did you hear about these laws that were passed in light of all of this stuff in the streets over there? There's a list of like over 30 laws that have been passed to regulate all kinds of stuff. If you cannot go to a protest with any kind of mask or hard hat or helmet, or you're going to go to jail for 15 days. You can't travel in a car. If you have like 5 cars, you're losing your license. Like traveling in a convoy, you're losing your license for 2 years. Stuff like that, all kinds of very restrictive things to stop these people. Basically, to me, I think they're trying. It's the desperate act of the suit and tie types over there to put a chilling effect into the people so that they'll go back into their homes. But I don't think it's going to work.
So they're in martial law, is what you're saying?
That's pretty much what it's looking like. Yeah, from what I understand, they've already started to shut down television, shut down the internet, and things like that. I know that if there's a subreddit that's been going on for a few days, keep like a live update, and that's been a pretty good source of information. Not to mention, another thing that's fueling it is the cops. We have it on the Big Plantation. They are firing live rounds at people. It might not be all of them or all the time, but they're firing. It looks like a custom, huge 12-gauge brass slug that is being fired at the protesters there.
And like I was saying earlier, just so you know, Prime Minister Mykola Azarov has reported. Azarov, yeah, he's reported to the BBC that that is not true. He is saying that the police are unarmed, and they have been unarmed from the very beginning, and they will continue to be unarmed.
Now, how about that story about how the protesters are reacting on a human level to try to wake up these militarized police forces in the Ukraine?
There were a group of, I believe it was Orthodox.
Yeah, the Orthodox Christians. I wasn't even referencing that, but that's a good point too. I was talking about the mirrors thing, but go ahead.
Yeah. Well, they basically the Orthodox Christians, at least in the one that I understand, they stood between the mob of people and the police, just preaching peace, basically.
For an excellent photo op. By the way. Mind you, that Orthodox Church rules Russia's social makeup with an iron fist. Just ask the ladies of Pussy Riot.
There's definitely no argument there. I mean, Vladimir Putin is definitely gearing Russia in more of a direction towards a Christian nation. He wants it to be a Christian nation.
There ain't nothing Christian about the Orthodox. I'll say that. But it is their official state-funded religion. Absolutely.
But, you kind of got to give it to these people that are trying to preach peace even in a time of serious chaos like that. And, I'm going to have to plug our outreach here. Because of things like this, that's why I think, all right, we all three of us here at the very least, and probably most of our listeners, have been hugely inspired by Ron Paul. And what was one of the main messages of Ron Paul? If I could sum Ron Paul up in two, quick sound bites, it would be end the Fed and end the wars. Now, what was behind end the wars? Practice diplomacy. Exhaust your diplomatic options. You know what I mean? Things like that. So that is why when you see these trends going on, when you see how out of control things are getting and how bad these skirmishes are, and knowing that could get so much worse into like an actual civil war, that is why it's incumbent upon us who know this message to actually reach out. And if you truly believe that bad times are coming, economic turmoil is coming, resulting in civil unrest of some sort, and that it's going to be us in the streets with the cops trying to suppress us and stuff like that. If you truly believe that, then it is incumbent upon all of us to try to reach out and make peace with the police and to practice that same diplomatic option, because these are human beings at the end of the day. Now, there might be mind control, they might be trained to shut that off, but you know what? We don't want a civil war, or at the very, very least, if we get a civil war, we would like to turn as many of these people to the right message. So please, you don't even have to join. I don't care if you join the page or not. I don't care if you join the event on Facebook. Just call a police station. If you're uncomfortable with calling a local police station because of any, backlash, call one across the country. Call one. I don't care. Just call them and try to open up a conversation and say, hey, look at these alternative media outlets that are pumping out these stories about how this is not an isolated incident. These cop stories are happening every day. Me and you, Moses, were talking about this fact. This fact is huge. The fact that more Americans have been killed by police since the wars overseas started than terrorists overseas or insurgents or people defending their homes overseas. More Americans are being killed domestically than they are overseas at this point. So these are things that should be greatly weighed upon people, and we need to have if organized or not, people need to try and open up these lines of conversations with these people, because we don't want it to get this ugly.
And just to add to the peace with police idea, everybody needs to keep in mind on what we were just talking about, the fact that you have these resistances popping up everywhere. The CIA works in other countries to add provocateurs to create an unstable situation and then fill a vacuum, basically. Why would they not try to employ those same exact modes and techniques right here at home? So using something outside the box like this Peace with Police project, I think, is a great idea, because otherwise you're playing into the hand. And if you watch their plan systematically play out overseas on controlled, smaller microcosms of America, you could very logically deduce that may wind up being employed here. So why not play into the hand and think outside the box? And I really believe this Peace with Police movement that Heiss was just speaking on is a good start.
Yeah, it's important, man. It's important because I've had bad interactions with the cops. I mean, we all know that. I've been harassed pretty good by them. But at the same time, I was living in a small rural area, and I've had nothing but good experiences with the cops there. And it's unheard of. In fact, I had a personal sit down with the chief of police telling him, hey, just so you know, when I go on walks, I'm going to be carrying, just to make a statement, a sign and an AK on my back. And so I would expect that if you get any phone calls with a person with a rifle meeting my description, that you're going to have my back and say, yeah, well, it's his right, we're aware. There's nothing we can do. He's just practicing his Second Amendment rights. And basically all this guy said to me is, just do yourself a favor and don't, stop to stretch in front of a bank or something. You know what I mean? That's pretty much all he had to say, and was supportive.
And just to go back to last week when we had Cantwell on, his response to that was the fact that you're leading people to slaughter by this. But I can't point to one situation where a person who was completely educated of their rights were killed in a situation like that. Sure, we have a guest coming up who can definitely testify to somebody getting their rights infringed upon, even though they were educated to the rights that existed. But you need to educate yourself. That's what's important. And I'd like to shout out Heist Click Frank Castle. What's cracking, baby? You're on FPRN Radio. Big Plantation. We'll be back. Fuckers.
I'm just a slave and I wanna share my rage.
Hello, fellow patriots. This is Joseph Nazari, Director of Training Operations with Line of Fire LLC, Professional Firearms Training Group, located in Las Vegas, Nevada. The fact that you're listening to this show is evidence to me that you are a true patriot and you do value your freedoms. As all patriots know, with freedom comes responsibility, and if you own a firearm, training should be an integral part of your personal defense profile. If you're considering quality firearms training, Line of Fire LLC should be your first choice. We teach all types of firearms training for all types of individuals, from the novice to the most advanced shooters. At Line of Fire LLC, we have a course for you. Please feel free to call us today at 702-242-8288. We look forward to speaking with you soon. Once again, that's Line of Fire LLC, 702-242-8288.
Now I'm covered.
Now for the first time, you can be covered. If you've been waiting to be covered in mandates, regulations, and new fees, the time is finally here. Sort of. So make some coffee.
I'm covered.
Approach life with reckless abandon. Kick your feet up.
I'm covered.
Because you're going to be in the waiting room for quite a while. But don't you worry your pretty little head off. First of all, it wouldn't be covered.
We're covered.
No, I said it would not be covered.
Now we're covered.
No, that's not... Yeah, I don't think you understood what I meant by covered earlier. It was a little bit ironic. Healthcare.gov is not responsible for fulfilling any of the expectations, mandates, legal requirements, hopes, or dreams of any users. Results may vary. Consult your Obamacare-approved doctor or pharmacist to find out if Obamacare is right for you. Current waiting lists to have your doctor chosen for you are unavailable and will remain so for the foreseeable future. Obamacare may cause wait times, a decline in healthcare quality, money loss, political activism, anger, despair, hopelessness, frustration, European envy, dependence, and nausea. If you discover that your premiums have gone up as a result of Obamacare, please note that the program is working as intended and refrain from complaining. Call your doctor if you experience anxiety for longer than 4 hours. If you wish to opt out of Obamacare for any reason, please start a multi-million-dollar business, join a union, or run for Congress.
Mr. President, members of Congress, you've been making a lot of noise about taking our guns away. But you might want to review history. 1835, Gonzales, Texas Territory. The authorities wanted to confiscate the big gun that protected that colony. You know what the people said? Come and take it. Because they were willing to fight for their freedom and their guns. So are we.
Come and take it if you want it. Come and take it if you think you can. Come and take it, but I warn you, you'll have to pry it from my cold dead hands. We want the freedom that God gave us, so you best not cross that line. If you want this gun, you gotta come through us and take it.
One shot at a time. Just like Gonzales, we're keeping our guns.
Hi, I'm Steve.
I'm Irene.
I'm Lisa.
My name is Tom.
I'm a graphic designer.
College freshman.
Stay-at-home mom with a full-time job.
Scholar on social policy and a barista.
And I'm just like you.
I'm an Obama supporter.
I support President Obama.
But the president needs your help.
Our president can't launch into another war without you. And remember, we promise to support him no matter what.
Together, we can do it.
That's why we here at the Americans for Whatever Barack Obama Wants, Did You Know He's Friends with Jay-Z, have launched a Kickstarter campaign to fund World War III.
And America is dead-ass broke, so our goal is to raise $1.6 trillion on behalf of the U.S. government.
That's where you come in.
Even a small donation would make all the difference.
When I first saw the president speak in 2008, in a YouTube clip posted to my Facebook page, I knew he was going to be right all the time. So I support World War III and IV. and any moon war the president may want to start.
I mean, there is no way that he or the cabal of corporate interests, spy agencies, and shadow bankers that tell him what to do would ever mislead us. A $25 donation will get you a piece of rubble from a war-torn Middle Eastern country kissed by Senator Lindsey Graham.
A $100 donation gets you a day pass to leave your local refugee camp.
You'll probably end up in a refugee camp, but it'll have free Wi-Fi.
So please, help us reach our goal of $1.6 trillion so we can make World War III a reality. Why? Because Obama.
Because Obama.
In every age, a technology is created that upends the foundations of society. The wheel, the printing press, the internet. Now, in a world sliding into financial chaos, a new technology is changing the way monetary systems work around the world. It is called Bitcoin. Bitcoin is a new form of money, controlled not by banks, governments, or corporations, but through mutual commerce between free individuals. To learn more, visit weusecoins.com.
Thanks for listening to FPRN. Don't forget to check us out on Facebook and Twitter. If you'd like to start your own show with FPRN, advertise with us, or donate to the network or to your favorite shows, check out our website at www.fprnradio.com.
You don't have to be a lowlife your whole life, Mr. President. You don't have to declare war on innocent people.
All right, we are back. Moving right into the guest segment of our show. I know a lot of you have been waiting for it. I don't think he needs much of a introduction. We got Adam Kokesh on the line. I think pretty much everybody's familiar with his story and the act of civil disobedience that he did, and all of the drama that ensued after. And he is free-ish now. He's kind of free as it gets to be in the system and in America at the same time. That's, rough position to be in, but just glad to have you on, Adam. How's it going?
And I really appreciate what you're doing and the platform and the kind of conversation you've got going around what you do.
I appreciate it, man. So the one thing I wanted to get started with is that I think that that the human element of a lot of what you did kind of gets lost in translation, when people following it through social media, following it through a screen. What was going through your head as this was all going on? You're in the courtroom, because I got to be honest with you, man, and I hate to say it, I thought you were going to jail. I thought you were going to jail. I think a lot of people were going to jail, and it seemed shocking to me because we had a short text conversation. You seemed like the only person that didn't think you were going to jail, and so what did that feel like to just have that judgment come down of time served?
Yeah, well, it was not just time served, Mike. That would have been nice. It was time served plus a 20-month suspended sentence plus 2 years probation, which means that for 2 years, at least that 20-month suspended sentence is totally hanging over my head. If I sneeze at a cop the wrong way, they could just say, all right, 20 months, that's kicking in now. And, it was actually exactly what I predicted was going to happen. I didn't give myself great odds. I was thinking like 60% odds, but in terms of, 60% odds that it would be what I got or better. And, I thought maybe 20% odds I'll get something even better than that, like just probation and no suspended sentence and, pretty easy probation without conditions or something like that. I mean, that's really what I was realistically, that was my hope. That was, my real hope. And I thought it was only about 20% odds of that. But my main consideration, my main money was on, 40% odds I'm going to get. They're not going to send me back to jail, but they're going to throw something at me that is going to make my life more difficult. I'm still banned from D.C. for 2 years, and I've got it, right now. I'm waiting to hear back from my probation officer about getting permission to move to California, even though I'd have to get permission to live somewhere because I'm not allowed in D.C., and I don't really live anywhere right now. I'm staying with Nathan Cox here in Mechanicsville near Richmond, Virginia. But yeah, it was a big relief. You go into that with 40% odds. I might be going back to jail. But a big part of it was, support of people like you. And I got to thank everybody that supported me while I was in jail, everybody who showed up in court that day. We had the courtroom pretty well filled, and we had a lot of people who wrote letters to the judge and called and left voicemails. And they know that there was a certain amount of public attention on the case. The mainstream media coverage, especially local TV, was pretty intense. So they know that kind of scrutiny is on them, or the judge herself, Judge Broderick. And I think she did. She's a former prosecutor, and you could get me going for hours on all the problems with the legal system in this country. It's not a justice system; it's a legal system, or a punishment system, or keep the sheeple under control system. But whatever, however you want to describe it, it's certainly not a justice system. And I think within that she did what she was expected to do. I thought being denied bail in my situation was pretty ridiculous. But part of that was because I had incompetent lawyers. Well, maybe incompetent is a bit of a stretch. But I could have had a lawyer that was more dedicated to my case if my legal defense funds hadn't been stolen, and if we had support from some of the major gun rights groups. But instead, I had a court-appointed attorney who I think was well-intentioned, but wasn't able to properly make the case for me to get out on bail, and didn't really prepare me for what the government was going to throw at me. And, I didn't want to take a plea, but it ended up being the right play given the circumstance. And, I really, the reason I did this was because I wanted to challenge it, but I also didn't anticipate the SWAT team raid going down the way it did. And I really thought that we were going to have a fair day in court, and that option was taken away. And what they were threatening to do with all these additional charges was bring them as separate trials. And each one could have been 6 months. So just by not taking the plea and saying I'm gonna demand a trial by jury, I would have been essentially accepting a 2-year sentence right there. And if I felt like I had the support on the outside beyond my audience and the community of people that really believe in the message that self-defense is a civil right, if we had support from more of the mainstream gun groups or the mainstream part of the movement, we might have been able to do that. But it was really just enough to bring the public pressure to bear. And I was pretty excited about how much we were able to spread the message, how many people's attention we did get, especially locally in D.C. And the inmates, once I got to general population, were really supportive and really excited. A lot of the guards were fans, so that was fun. But being in jail wasn't the hard part. I was in a kind of torture chamber for the first 3 days, but other than after that, it was nothing I couldn't handle, having done 7 months in combat. But what I really couldn't handle was see people lying in my name to the public, people trashing my reputation, people lying to me while I was in jail, and the people who I entrusted to run my business stabbing me in the back. So that made it really hard for me when you're in jail and your communication is limited to maneuver the way you want and do what you want to do, and to really challenge the system properly. And I should have been better prepared. And I've made a lot of mistakes in terms of who I hired and who I trusted, and I'm relaunching and looking forward to learn from those mistakes.
Well, Adam, I had a question for you on that. They didn't try to tie your hands at all with the stipulations of your probation as far as activism is concerned, did they?
Well, yes and no. I mean, if civil disobedience is activism, then that's kind of cut off from me, at least for 2 years, and that's I'm okay with that, because I feel like I've set the bar pretty high for the risk taking that people should be engaging in when it comes to activism. And if you look back to the American founders, the bar that I set is really damn low. I feel like what I did was risking my life to a certain degree, and there are lots of activists that do that, all the time in America. But I think it was a particular risk that I took, and I wish I could stay on the front lines like that. But I'm happy to sit back a little bit and focus on the book that I just wrote and getting that edited and published now, and getting my media operation back and doing a live show 5 days a week, and that's what I'm really focused on right now. So I kind of want to be in a better position to support everybody else. And I've also failed in this in the past in supporting other people in the movement that are doing good work. And so that's really going to be front and center with Adam versus the Man 4.0, is promoting other activists that are doing civil disobedience. So for me, yeah, I mean, in the sense that they tied my hands, I don't know. I got to find out when I check in with my probation officer in California. But civil disobedience now, in terms of my strict definition of civil disobedience, is is kind of cut off from me, because anything I do isn't just the immediate citation or arrest or whatever consequences you face from that. It's you're on probation, 20 months, automatically you go back to jail if you get arrested, if you do anything like that. So in that sense, my hands are tied a little bit, at least for the next 2 years.
So does that include the conch shell at the end of the show?
Not if I'm in California and I'm doing it under state law. And I know this is kind of funny, but when I signed my paperwork here in D.C. for the probation, it said, the first line says you will obey all laws, and then like 3 lines down, when it says you will consume no controlled substances, it says except marijuana with a prescription. And I'm like, well, that's still in violation of federal law, right? And they're like, yeah, well, we make an exception for that. And I think they have to do that because it's legal. Now there's a very limited medical marijuana program in D.C., but I'm pretty sure if I'm in California. But you know what? Even that, I haven't been smoking since I was released, and I don't have anything against it. I don't need it anymore. I did a lot of meditation when I was in jail that was very positive for me. I had some really wonderful epiphanies about my own attitude and outlook in the relationship of choosing to be happy and emotional freedom and the connection of that with liberty. So I really don't need it for PTSD. It would be at this point really, if I get stressed out, just like, you get a headache, you take an Advil, you get stressed out, you smoke a joint or whatever. But if that's something that I got to worry about in order to do it, I'm not going to, and I'm not really going to miss it.
Adam,
you
an
had
interesting
alluded
subtext to the whole story here that you touched on, and I think it should be an example of how powerful every activist is the fact that jamming up that courtroom really had an effect. We see the opposite of that all the time. Like there was the case of that animal cop in Philly that punched that poor Puerto Rican woman in the face, and then the judge happened to be the prosecutor's husband or wife or something wild like that, and then cops filled that room, and then, the woman didn't win. But then we see the opposite here. I see that as a real win for anybody who doubts how powerful or how much of an effect we can actually have.
Absolutely.
So, you had mentioned, and it is really unfortunate, and I am glad that I got out before all. For anyone who doesn't know,
I wish you had been there. You could have kept. It's funny, Mike, because I'm sorry. And I don't know if I'm sure you've talked about this on the show, but it was really unfortunate that we couldn't keep you on the team because you didn't have the skills to fit in the role that we had you in. But you were the best guy filling in for me. The one thing that you do brilliantly is rant on the air. And I love that. I love hearing you. And actually, I've been sitting here working, listening. I got to catch most of the first half of the show. I was on and off phone calls, and I had to get some work done myself. But, you've really got a gift there. And compared to the people that I had on board with at the time I got arrested, your integrity is so much higher. And I couldn't... I don't know if I could give you a stronger endorsement than that, but I wish you'd stuck around.
I appreciate it. I really do. But one thing that I'm definitely curious about is, because I know you got the crowdfunder, is there any kind of, because personally I've laid low. To me, I'm in the background. Everybody started pointing fingers at each other. I didn't want to get involved. Is there any resolution in sight? Is there any way that can be recouped into helping you push Adam versus the Man 4.0?
Yeah, well, you mean the money that was stolen?
Yeah, and that whole situation.
Well, yes and no. And I'm fortunate enough to have a supporter that loaned me the money against what was stolen in order to deal with the charges I was facing in Virginia. And it looks like we're going to have that resolved, no problem. I can't really say anything more about that, but it was money well spent on legal defense there. But it didn't come from the general legal defense fund. It came from a separate loan that I got. And we're going to be pursuing bank fraud. We're going to be reporting through the bank, and so we can get the money back from that. But if we do, it goes immediately back to the person that loaned me that money. And I can't say who that is because they wanted to remain anonymous. But and then there was the money that was my personal funds that were stolen. And it turns out that the money that was loaned and the money that was stolen from my business account were about on par. Although there was a lot of aside from the false checks that were written that about, cash that was taken out and money that was misspent, and there's the $24,000 that I owed to my landlord when I got out because of all the damages that were done to the house and the rent that didn't get paid. And I had to take care of I negotiated that down by a lot and had to take care of it personally. But I had to borrow some money when I got out just to take care of business so that I wasn't going back to court because my landlord was actually suing me for that money. But then there was a few $1,000s, like $3,000 something, that was basically my entire personal account, my personal checking account that was stolen out of that, and I should be able to get that back. And I'm very fortunate that to be in a situation with the disability I get from the Marines that I can say I'm going to live off of that. It's $1,200 something a month, and since I went independent, since I left RT, I've never taken a salary from Adam versus the Man. And I'm happy to live off of that in order to put everything back into my business because I believe in this message so much. I believe in the business that I'm building with Adam versus the Man that I want to invest in it for the long term. And I think the fans and the people that are supporting me now in launching the show can see that commitment and can really appreciate it.
And how long, Adam, till that book that you were speaking on is out, or will you continue working on it? And also, I wanted to ask you about, you had alluded to a 2020 potential run, Adam versus the Man, for presidency.
That's correct. Yeah, the book is coming out on Independence Day this year, and I'm really, really excited about it. It's very concise. It's global in scope. It's easily accessible. The rough draft right now is about 140 pages. I hope to get it down to 120, and it's the easiest way to say I get it. And it answers all of the what ifs or what abouts for a truly free stateless society. And it also, I think, captures what I feel is really my one true intellectual contribution to the freedom movement. And it's really kind of cool to be able to be a part of something so significant in the course of human evolution and human history, and yet be able to look back over the history of the movement and see what's been done and do a survey of the literature. And the idea of localization is what I'm talking about here. And it's not like I invented the concept, but I think in the context of how to transition to a stateless society, the idea of taking governments apart from the top down, it's one that I've been developing for the past several years and, really crystallized for me while I was in jail. But libertarians, as you know, often are accused of being lacking in compassion. And if you understand libertarianism as universal nonviolence, the non-aggression principle, self-ownership, you're like, what? How could that not be compassionate? And they'll say, well, what about poor people? What about people that are dependent on the state? What about this, right? And you can talk about the ideal of a voluntary society and how in a peaceful world we'll be much better able to take care and address these issues that will, all human relations are going to be better without violence and coercion. I mean, it's like a universal, like a law of physics almost. And we often then miss the transition when they say, okay, well, and you just want to eliminate the welfare state? Like, no. We have to be realistic about how we do this. And a lot of libertarians will say, well, there's going to be a collapse. And in a sense, localization is what's going to happen with or without me, with or without anybody embracing this idea, because the current systems are not sustainable. It's just a matter of, do we do this deliberately or not? Do we face up to these issues, or do we let a collapse come and hope that a government spares us in its violent death throes as it clings to power? And you might say, well, I'm the prepper. I've got a bunker. I've got guns and ammo and food. And well, guess what? You're the first ones that they're going to be coming after if it really hits the fan that way. Not the good little sheeple cowering in the cities trying to stay dependent on this machine. Those are the people that are going to be most vulnerable. So we really need to face up to this. And I think as compassionate people, we really owe it to ourselves to seek out these kinds of solutions. And the one that I've come up with is taking governments apart from the top down. So I'm running for president on the platform of the orderly dissolution of the United States federal government in 2020. And maybe the country will be ready to hear the message then. I think the book is going to lay a lot of the groundwork for that. But if not, certainly the federal government is going to help me in my platform by proving my point every day from now until then. And being realistic, I don't think the country is going to be ready in 2020, but I think we can plant the flag. I think we can plant some powerful seeds. And if we can just get on the map with 1 or 2%, you know, at the scale that Nader did in 2020, then maybe in 2024, the idea will be that much more popular because things will have gotten that much worse and the ideas will have spread that much more and people will be demanding self-government. But in America, in a way, we're blessed with the opportunity of the state system where at least we have this, you know, this illusion, right, that states are sovereign. But people want to be in more, even statists want to be more empowered in government. They want a greater say in it. So whether you're a liberal or a conservative or a mainstream statist, you're going to want more local government. And that's also how we inspire self-government, because when people are more engaged locally, they see that being in charge of it is empowering. And eventually we want to push that all the way down to the divine individual, and you can transition away from governments through, you know, private property collectives, you know, through actually restoring real private property as opposed to being a renter on land like we all are now, essentially living under a protection racket. And you can transition to that truly voluntary society without pulling the rug out from underneath anybody in a really compassionate way. I think that's a message that has a much more wide appeal than, yeah, we're going to do education and activism and agorism and then we're going to disempower the government until it collapses. Like, no, nobody's going to sign on to that, and they shouldn't.
Adam, would you be encouraging people then to get more involved in their local government or even run for office?
Well, yes and no, and I want to I point this out in the book that fighting inch by inch is a losing strategy. You know, you fight law by law, the politicians are going to pat you on the head and say, "Oh, good little citizen, you used the democratic process," and then they're going to laugh at you and take a mile behind your back, and you know, you all know how this works. So, I think any kind of activism that lessens the amount of coercion or violence in society or in your community is absolutely worthwhile. I think that's great. And anything that you do that wakes people up is great. But if we believe that liberty is a moral principle, that freedom is right because it is moral and just, because of the non-aggression principle, then we shouldn't be advocating for for minarchism, which is essentially saying, well, violence is bad, but I want violence to be used for these purposes, because the answer is going to be, well, okay, you want violence to be used for defense and courts and this. Well, I want violence to be used to get me a welfare check and to, you know, pay for my kids' school and to build the roads. But if we can take that absolute moral stance and win people over to that, as opposed to just a different flavor of statism, then we have an ability to really wake people up and change the paradigm. And so I'm against any kind of activism that's based on, well, we're going to elect somebody who's going to be one vote and that's it. Or, you know, we're going to get one law overturned and it's going to make it, you know, the government, you know, it's going to make them, you know, this much, you know, it's going to make them just a tiny bit more difficult for the government to harass us. But if it falls into those broader categories of either lessening coercion or increasing awareness, then it's all worthwhile. It's all great. And yes, absolutely, being involved locally is very important. I would just say then that if being involved locally is what people are passionate about as activists, another area that they could be focusing on is agorism, and that is really the broader practice of deliberately engaging in black market activities to disempower government or render it obsolete. And I'm not talking about, you know, dealing drugs. I'm talking about like owning guns and getting to know your neighbors and being willing to stand up for yourself. In a sense, providing your own defense services for yourself, you know, is an act of defiance when the government wants you to be dependent on the police state. So I would just say that the kinds of things in localism that I'm really excited about and really excited about encouraging and featuring on Adam versus the Man 4.0 are things like, you know, the Peaceful Streets Project, like Antonio Buehler is doing in Texas, or like what, again, in Texas, in Austin, you have John Bush and Kat Bush. I don't know if she's still going by Bleish, but you have the Bush Family Farm and Sovereign Living TV and you know, talking about people living off the grid and having local food co-ops, things like that. I mean, that's really exciting. That, you know, ways that we can separate ourselves from this corrupt system. And if I may just say one more thing about localism, the other thing that libertarians don't seem to have an answer for in general is the massive unjust acquired wealth in the world today. Government has served to transfer an incredible amount of wealth from the poor to the rich. And, you know, if we believe in this Lockean concept of justly acquired property, then how do we take back unjustly acquired property? Localism provides, at least in terms of land resources and in the monetary resource as well, a lot of ways for people to do that. And you know, you can't always untangle the knot of things that have been stolen and handed down over generations and, you know, dispersed through government. But at least through localization, you can reclaim land that's been sequestered by government or hand it over to corporations and make it available for homesteading or more productive uses.
Now, Adam, we're coming up against the break. I know you said you don't have much time. I know we got a few callers on the line. Is there any way that you could stick with us into the next segment to answer a couple more questions?
I'm good for an hour. Let's do it.
Awesome. Thank you, Adam.
And you know what? I want to touch on a key point that you're talking about with agorism. I think whether people realize it or know it by that name, that is getting more and more popular as the police state gets worse. Like, all right, people, I know a lot of doctors are moving to cash-only transfers for their services in order to avoid taxes. That in and of itself is agorism.
Let's get into it after the break, all right? FPRN, Big Plantation. We got Adam Kokesh.
He got his way when Kennedy was whacked. He's lying.
Do you have a group or organization founded on the principles of personal liberty, health freedom, or accountable government? We invite you to check out Same Side Entertainment. Same Side is a source for activists and liberty organizations to connect with well-known leaders in today's growing movement for sustainable living, personal liberty, and sovereignty issues. Same Side has a variety of keynote speakers, debate panels, interactive web presentations, musicians, and liberty-based entertainment, as well as services for web design, graphic design, video, and photography. Same Side can help customize your event by connecting you to the best of the liberty and political world while staying within your budget. Get connected with leaders in the liberty movement like Tom Woods, Kevin Gutzman, Jack Hunter, Robert Scott Bell, Bob Murphy, Michael Scheuer, John Bush, Jordan Page, Tatiana Moroz, and many more. Find us on Facebook, Twitter, and our website at www.samesideentertainment.com. Again, that's www.samesideentertainment.com. Same Side Entertainment, connecting you with the education and resources you need.
Obamacare. Fun. Cool. YOLO. At Obamacare, we believe in saying the words affordable health care so that young people will love us and sign up like lemmings. Sure, you pay 2.5% of your income in penalties, but young people don't have to worry about that because you don't have a job. Work sucks. That's why we at Obamacare want to trade your full-time job for a part-time one. So you'll have more time for fun things, like watching millionaire celebrities tweet about how affordable we are. Obamacare. Just like guys enjoy premium leather seats, so too you'll enjoy paying triple the healthcare premiums out of your new part-time salary. Speaking of guys, ever been on a mandate before? At Obamacare, we're full of mandates. But don't worry, big corporations get exempt, so you don't have to. It's fun paying for things you don't even use. Yeah, you work out, stay healthy. But come on, brah. Someone's got to pay for people who smoke, drink 85-ounce sodas, and live in a Barcalounger. So enjoy your premium hikes, young people of America, because everyone loves hikes. Obamacare. If millionaire celebrities can afford us, why can't you? A message from the White House Office of Obamacare. Propaganda to get young people to love us and sign up like lemmings.
In every age, a technology is created that upends the foundations of society. The wheel, the printing press, the internet. Now, in a world sliding into financial chaos, a new technology is changing the way monetary systems work around the world. It is called Bitcoin. Bitcoin is a new form of money, controlled not by banks, governments, or corporations, but through mutual commerce between free individuals. To learn more, visit weusecoins.com.
Well, yeah, it's getting tough out there. Yeah, no doubt. I work in home invasions, mostly. Some murder, occasional rape, if she's hot, or really bitchy. And I'm a huge advocate of gun control, absolutely. Every time I kick in a door or smash a window, I face the possibility of being shot and killed. Allowing citizens to own guns creates a hostile work environment for me and my associates. No one should have to work under those conditions. I say make them all illegal, absolutely. I mean, I break the law for a living. I'm a professional, so it doesn't really bother me. No doubt. No doubt.
Your local violent criminals work hard and put their lives on the line every time they attempt to murder, rape, abduct, or assault a member of the citizenry. They desperately need your help. With your support, there may finally come a day when a violent criminal can have his way with you or someone you love without the fear, anxiety, and stress caused by knowing there's a possibility his victim might be armed. Please show your support by voting for stronger anti-gun legislation because criminals prefer unarmed citizens.
In 1997, a high school shooting was stopped by a vice principal with a gun. In 1998, a middle school shooting was ended by a neighbor with a gun. In 2002, a terrorist attack was stopped by a school guard and a teacher with a gun. After September 11th, pilots began carrying guns to protect their passengers. Let's give our schools and teachers the same option. Sign the petition at defendschools.com.
Thanks for listening to FPRN. Don't forget to check us out on Facebook and Twitter. If you'd like to start your own show with FPRN, advertise with us, or donate to the network or to your favorite shows, check out our website at www.fprnradio.com.
All right, and we are in the final segment of this edition of the Big Plantation Live. I just want to keep it trucking. We got Adam Kokesh with us. Adam, I got one more question I personally want to ask you before I take calls because it blows my... We have independently come to the same conclusion because the way I feel the conversation about a free society is right now, I would compare it much to when you take a basic physics class where, you know, when you're doing a physics problem, you have to assume a perfect environment. You don't take into account friction. You don't take into account these outside forces in order to, and you do this in order to understand the concepts before you move into a deeper concept. And that's where I feel the conversation is with a free society. And like you said, the big question, the thing that I think is the most important question is, how do we justly reacquire unjustly gotten wealth, and how do we liquidate it? Because my personal opinion is that we need to launch court cases. We need to launch court cases because obviously if you do a French Revolution style and you just start saying, oh, well, these people, you know, they're the rich, they're the elites, we're going to take all this shit. Well, you know, it seems to get out of control. But if nothing else, if we take Goldman Sachs to court and turn up wrongdoing, it establishes our legitimacy. And that point, it's not even if something violent were to break out, it's not civil war, it's you're enforcing a conviction.
Absolutely. And you know, I got to, before we even get into this, Mike, you know, I want to just preface this with, you know, in order to really separate ourselves from the leftists on this, who are so materialistic and are willing to turn to violence and coercion, and your allusion to the French Revolution is really apt here. And you know, my answer to this question previously as a libertarian was always, you're just going to have to accept that there's a certain disparity of wealth in the world, and like stop being so damn materialistic. And I think that's true in general. If you believe that liberty and nonviolence is more important and freedom is more important than equality, then yeah, you're never going to get this done perfectly. And I think we have to accept that to a certain degree. But you're right, there are some really big ones, and there are some obvious ones that you can fix through the legal system, or rather, I shouldn't say through the legal system, but you know, maybe through a proper judicial system. But I would make the case then, Mike, that we're better off doing that after we dissolve the federal government rather than before. And also, a lot of those problems are going to go away with the monetary system going away, being replaced by whatever free market currency there is, you know, whether it's Bitcoin or I really believe it's going to be some other form of cryptocurrency that's going to come later. But, you know, that there is something is going to come and displace the fiat currency. And whatever that is going to take care of a lot of the problems of existing wealth disparity. But in localization, you know, we can do it on a level where you're actually dealing with people in your community. Hey, did you really earn this money, or did you only get this money because it was stolen money from the taxpayers? And I think that there's even a better way of going about that than turning to the existing judicial system. Not that that's what you're suggesting, but I think you're right that's you know, and I haven't obviously fully developed the platform, and I think for Adam 2020, the priority is making the commitment that we are going to have all authority at least returned to the states within 4 years. But if there's some way that we can incorporate in that process a system of returning unjustly acquired property and maybe setting up a special court system to achieve it, I'd certainly be open to the possibility. But ultimately, the best solution is going to be the voluntary free market solution at the much more local level, and I think that's going to be much more sustainable. But you're right, like at the top, yeah, there's some just huge chunks of wealth that are in the wrong hands that you're justified in a sense in using force to reclaim. So I'm certainly open to exploring that, and I definitely think that that's an important thing that libertarianism in the past as an intellectual body of work has often skipped over.
And I'd like to raise a point because, you said that you think it would be in our best interest to dissolve the federal government before that happens. But as we have, I don't know if you heard, but we have you featured in our our intro to the show. As you famously said, yeah, that quote. As you famously said, that we are dangling dangerously from freedom to fascism. So I would argue we have a two-front war here in that we have to abolish both the government and its corporate sponsors.
I don't know if I would put it that way, but you definitely have a very valid point there. That fascism, the merging of corporations and state, right? That's why you alluded to that term. Am I right?
Absolutely.
Okay, so do we have to abolish corporations? If you take away the government and disempower them,
well, no, I don't mean abolish corporations. All right, let me because
excuse me, you're right. I misspoke in representing your statement, but take away their unjust power, and in that sense, again, I think localization goes a long way to that because if you have like obviously the banking system that depends on the federal enforcement in order to keep the monetary system in place, you take away the federal government, all of those advantages go away. But I mean, let's say you've got like a manufacturing corporation that's got plants in multiple places, and you go, well, when the state becomes sovereign, we're going to reclaim this as state property that is now, and I'm not advocating state property as the end all, but then we issue shares to the people of our state because we know that this corporation only existed because of state power. Or if one state in a certain situation decides, well, we want this particular factory to remain in the hands of its current owners because we believe that despite government corporatism, they really earned their profits because they were providing a legitimate service and didn't really benefit quite that much from government power, then that should be respected. So I like I said, I'm open to this, and Mike, I'm really glad you raised this because it's an issue that I have not given sufficient consideration to in the development of the platform. All I know is that the core of the platform and the core commitment is there will be no federal government after 4 years of my presidency. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. There's certainly room for within that doing things a lot of different ways and doing it as orderly as possible, doing it as peacefully as possible, and with as much as possible an eye towards the kind of justice that we both believe in. So in that sense, I have like a gut preference for wanting to see it handled more locally rather than nationally in that transition period, but it's definitely worth exploring.
Would the military exist?
Adam, I would love to sit here and spar with you, but I got to be fair to the callers that have been on the line waiting.
Hey, Mike, we're on the same page, man. You opened my eyes to another aspect of this that I hadn't really properly considered before, and I'm happy to admit that I don't have the complete answer there.
And like I said, I would love to go back and forth with you because it's something I have thought about a good bit. But I got to be fair to the callers and the audience here.
You can have me back on in 2019 when I've had a chance to develop this aspect of the platform a little more thoroughly.
Absolutely. And before we get to these calls, I want Adam. Did you see the picture of Bat Alex and Boy Wonder?
No, I have not.
All right, make sure you see it. But let's get to the callers.
Email it to me or post it on my Facebook or something or tweet it at me.
Absolutely.
All right, so I believe we got Larry first. Larry.
Hey, Adam, what's up, youngster?
Larry, thanks for calling in.
You got a question for him?
Yes. Are you going to continue to go to jail when I'm 900 miles away, or the next time you're going to wait until I'm there and break you out?
Yeah, that's a great question, because there were a lot of people joking about, no, Adam, I'm serious. You go to jail again, we're coming to get you. And there may come a time for that, but we are not there. And it's important to recognize, peaceful firearm civil disobedience is not for the purpose of challenging the government's monopoly on violence, except in an intellectual sense. When you're up against the guns of government that have the critical mass of society behind them, violent resistance is not the way to go. And while it would be cool, and while I was in jail, I was like, oh yeah, someone could come break me out. And then what? I'm a fugitive and I'm still up against this giant violent monster? No, that's not going to work.
Yeah. Let me tell you something. First of all, you and I have met. We've spoken.
Is this Larry Sinclair?
On many occasions.
Yes, it is.
Yes, it is.
All right.
Yes, it is. And I do want to tell you, you've definitely proven to me that you really do live by your words, because most people put in that situation, especially in D.C., I have a little experience with officials there and being thrown in the District of Columbia's jail and, not necessarily having access to attorneys and whatnot. I admire you for standing as firm as you did. Why you made a decision on pleading that, the only person you have to justify that to is you.
Thank you.
I think what you did has demonstrated what I've tried to say all along from the first time I've ever met you, which is you are sincere and you live by your word. And to me, that means a hell of a lot more than, the ones that want to sit out on the sidelines and, complain or condemn everybody. So
I appreciate that. And Larry, if I can
Kokesh.
extend a little campaign promise to you, we're going to have to look into putting you back in a jail cell with Mr. Obama if I ever get elected. How do you like that?
Damn, now why does it have to be a jail cell? For $3, I could get his birthday party.
For those of you that know Mr. Sinclair's story, they'll appreciate that joke. Anybody else, you'll have to look into it.
Yeah, definitely keep in touch, though, Adam, because if you're going out to California, I have some people I'd be more than happy to put you in touch with.
Wonderful. Thank you, sir.
All right, thanks for the call, Larry.
All
right, so next
Thank
I
you.
think we have Shirley on the line. Shirley,
avid listener to FPRN.
Yeah, thank you for your support, Shirley.
Hi there. I'm Mr. Kokesh. I have a couple questions for you, quick ones.
Sure.
You really couldn't. What would you do without the government's money to support you? I was really curious about that, because you're so anti-government, but yet you accept that money monthly, and I don't think you make any other money besides what the government gives you. Am I right?
No, that's not true at all. I don't take an income from my business, but before I got arrested, I had a very profitable business. I put all of that money back into the business, but I'm just trying to get my tax dollars back, and I absolutely endorse the idea of people getting what they can legally, directly, by the regulations out of government. I think that taking back what's been taken from us is absolutely justified.
And I would like to raise that we are under duress by the fact that we are governed. And when you look at it from a legal standpoint, if I am under duress and somebody puts a gun to my head and says perform this action that you wouldn't normally do, in a court of law, that is seen as justified for me doing that because I was under duress. And I view government the same way. Why we take the microcosm of, all right, put a gun to your head and do this on a small scale, but then when we drag that out to our relationship with government, you don't get that same luxury, is beyond me.
And plus, Adam did provide a
great,
service for the government for those checks that he's getting.
That's great, because that was my second question. When did you become enlightened to realize the government was evil? Because you did join the Army, right?
Yeah, well, I was in the Marines, and I have to remain very humble about talking about this message today, and for me making the transition to where I am in my philosophical understanding, because I first became a libertarian in high school when it was, I'm going to be a Republican or a Democrat? Really? Those are my options? Screw that. What else is there? Oh, libertarian? Leave me alone? Okay, yeah, sign me up for that. It took me like a decade to get to where I was, or where I am now, at least in my core philosophy of the non-aggression principle and self-ownership. And joining the Marines was definitely a big mistake. It's certainly contrary to that to feed into government violence, to be a paid killer, and that's what it was. And back then, and this is why I think the message of minarchism is so dangerous, is because it accepts the premise of aggressive force. And because I was a minarchist, I thought, well, I can join the military, maybe I can have a positive effect. And from a moral sense, I can say I really regret that.
And absolutely, and that did drive your activism in the initial sense, right, Adam, with the post-traumatic stress, bringing attention to the plight of the veterans. So it definitely wound up helping you in the long run. And so, I mean, without that, you may not have been able to wake up in the way you did.
Well, I think, you can always make I'm happy to look on the bright side of things and talk about how much I benefited from the challenge of being in the military and the challenge of being in combat for 7 months in Fallujah. But no, I wish I'd had the truth earlier. I really do. And if I had the truth when I was in high school, maybe instead of even going to college, I postponed college for a year to go through all my military training and join the reserves and then volunteer to deploy. If instead of that I had started doing what I'm doing now and building the platform and spreading this message, I mean, how much further along would I be? How much further along would the cause and the message and the movement be if I hadn't joined the military? If I had just applied these lessons in high school, if instead of reading, I don't know what I was reading, instead of reading the Libertarian Party platform stuff, if I had gone straight to reading Rothbard, I think I'd have been a lot better off.
Well, thank you, Shirley, for the call.
Really
and we don't.
Let me just say one more thing to Adam, because I hope he really means that, and that is something that he must get across on his radio show. Not to join the military.
Oh, absolutely. Shirley, if you see, please go to my YouTube channel right now. And it's funny because I just went through a lot of my old videos, kind of a trip down memory lane for me. I've got tons of videos, and some of the ones I'm most proud of are from guys in the military who said, I didn't re-enlist because of you, or I got out as a conscientious objector because of you, or from high school kids who said, I was considering joining the military until I heard your story. And I'm really the most proud of being able to have that kind of profound impact on people's lives. Learn from my mistakes.
100%. I love that, and I hope you really keep spreading that message, because I'm tired of the government brainwashing our kids to join something that is it bothers me, and you have no idea, and I just hate that, and I'm glad that you are saying don't join.
Absolutely. Thank you, man.
That's what I want everybody to realize. Do not join. Don't let your children join.
Whether it's the military or the TSA or the NSA or the local police force, you can do better, and you should have more self-respect than to be part of this violent gang of thugs that is trying to control our lives.
Absolutely. And Adam, on a personal level, that is also what drove me to follow you. I was watching everything you had to say at that time, because you were bringing to light the plight of veterans and how it was being overlooked, and bringing to attention post-traumatic stress. So just to add to what you're saying, I mean, kudos to you.
That's been an important part of my journey too. And, PTSD didn't, it exposed me to some different things, and I learned some different things, but man, it really slowed me down.
All right, well, we're at one more call, but I just want to make a comment that, I really like using that duress angle with the whole, oh, well, you do this thing that's contradictory to the principles that you espouse. Because we have a gun to our head, and because we are being driven into such economic situations, it's incentivized to not be able to follow your principles. And not to mention, a free society is the end, not the now. You know what I mean? So we are basically forced, because of that gun, to act in a way that contradicts the principles that we espouse sometimes, as much as we may hate it.
No, Mike, I'd even go a step further than that. And I think Shirley was a little misguided when she started on that line of questioning, because it's not a contradiction to say, I've paid a lot of taxes. How do I get my stolen money back? There's nothing wrong with taking money away from the violent machine. You're like, this is like the voting is immoral concept, and it's a load of crap. No, voting is an expression of preference. Are you endorsing the system? No, the government isn't going, see, 62% of Americans voted, therefore we can go bomb brown people on the other side of the world. No, they're going, we're in charge. We have all the guns. You're going to do what we say, so we're going to do it. It's a ridiculous false argument, and it's really important to not not even give into it that way. No, there's nothing contradictory being someone who advocates for a nonviolent, voluntary, stateless society and saying, I am going to disempower the current state by taking money away from it or paying less in taxes. There's no contradiction there whatsoever.
So we got 6 minutes left. I want to move into our last caller. I think we got Sean on the line.
Hey, what's going on, guys? Great show. I never quite expected to get such in-depth analysis on Justin Bieber, but it was quite thought-provoking. Anyhow, yeah, Adam, man.
Believe, Sean.
I am a big fan, man. Ever since I saw your the speech that we had alluded to earlier, your Iraq Veterans Against the War, the veteran group. I've been following you, man, and I do have to say you definitely brought a tear to my eye with that speech. It was quite awesome.
Can I just say something about that to put it in perspective? I really appreciate that. And that speech was, really kind of made me more than an anti-war activist and a much, liberty activist, because it made people understand that what I was about. And when I was walking to the after party after that was the Revolution March in 2008, I thought if they shot me right now and I was bleeding out on the sidewalk, I'd take my last ounce of energy to put a smile on my face. It was that kind of satisfaction. I just finished the rough draft for my book. I did it the night before I went in for sentencing. So if I went to jail, I could manage the editing and publication process from jail, and I wouldn't have to actually write parts of it, which would have been a lot more difficult. That was that effect times 10. And when this book comes out, it's going to be that effect times 100. And until you read it, until you see what this is, you're not going to get it. But I hope that gives you guys a sense of how hyped I am about this project.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you definitely have to follow your goals and all that. Question here. Okay, we talk about minarchism, and I'm not sure if you would consider a strict interpretation of the Constitution as minarchism. The original, basically without turning the welfare clause on its ear, and all
hold
that.
On a second. Some people will say constitutionalism is a form of minarchism. But it really isn't. It's really just a license for a strong central authority. I mean, you could say maybe the Articles of Confederation were minarchism, where it's really restricted to what that central government is going to be. But the Constitution is like the power to tax, the power to enforce intellectual property, to regulate commerce. I mean, wow, that's like way above and beyond big government. That's not minarchism.
Okay. Yeah, because, this is the issue. Just going to a completely stateless society, I have a difficulty being able to conceptualize it, with the current state of the way that most individuals are. If everybody was like, you, me, the people on the show, yeah, it'd be awesome. We can trade. I make freaking rugs. You chop firewood. Cool. We'll barter it up.
But it
seems like there's so many other people that you would try to take advantage of a situation where there was no sort of law enforcement or anything. And I just get worried that we could find ourselves in a situation like, perhaps like the TV show Revolution, or maybe like Uganda, where we have the rising up of a militia force.
I see where you're going.
It just does seem like the state gives us some domestic tranquility.
Just want to throw out. We got 3 minutes. Go.
I'm not advocating for the overthrow of governments. I'm advocating for the peaceful dissolution and return to local power. And that's my answer to that. And you're right that most libertarians don't have an answer to that. Well, I cracked the nut. I figured it out. This, and it's nothing, no new ideas under the sun, but in the sense of how we apply this to achieve a voluntary society. Yeah, you take governments apart from the top down, so you don't immediately transition to that. And if you believe that this message is the paradigm shift that's happening, the question is, how do we foster inspiration of self-government? And localizing government also does that. I mentioned this earlier briefly, that people will be more inspired when they have actual more power in their local governments to be more engaged. And then they're going to want it even more local, and then even more local. And that's how that transition is made gradually. You're absolutely right that if you just overthrow government and people aren't demanding local or self-government, yeah, there's a power vacuum. People will jump in and take advantage. That's why it's not a good solution.
So it's more like the Overton window, but we push it in that direction, and then people see that they're getting a benefit, of having less statism in their lives, and then we can just evolve just, like on our own, without any sort of coercion, basically.
Right, but the direction is not just less government. The direction is localization of government with the goal of no government. And when you get down to that local level, then you get to this is the really fun part. I mean, we could go on about this for hours, but is New York City going to be able to like just say, all right, everybody's actually free and a property owner now? No. And you have to say, okay, well, the corporation of New York City owns Manhattan and you're a renter here. But at least then it's based on a voluntary concept based around private property principles. In other counties in the country, it's going to be like, okay, now we just gradually transition however is fit for our community, and we go, maybe it's going to happen faster here, and maybe people are going to be more prosperous and safer here, and it's not going to be perfect. It's going to happen.
Adam, I don't mean to cut you off, but we're down to our last minute. I appreciate the call, Sean. We got about 40 seconds, so if you got anything else that you want to plug, belt it out.
And please come back,
I really appreciate it. And thanks again for all the good work that you do and for having me on. The real thing is that I'm starting from scratch, need some help, and if people want to support me getting back on my feet, I'm trying to raise $100,000 to relaunch properly. We've got a crowdfunder campaign going with some great kickbacks and T-shirts and some really other fun stuff. AdamVersusTheMan.com. It's all there.
Absolutely.
Awesome.
Thank you so much for being with us,
Adam. I know you didn't anticipate doing an hour. I really appreciate your time. Appreciate your message, your balls more than a lot of other people in the movement. And I'm a supporter, man. We'll be in touch.
Thanks, brother.
Peace.
All right, well, thanks, everybody, for joining. Please, as I said, subscribe to our Facebook page. We keep news flowing on a pretty consistent basis, and we will be back next week. Thank you so much.
Thanks for listening to FPRN. Don't forget to check us out on Facebook and Twitter. If you'd like to start your own show with FPRN, advertise with us, or donate to the network or to your favorite shows, check out our website at www.fprnradio.com.